The evening began like so many others, with laughter echoing off the walls and the glow of soft lights casting warmth across the room. We had been friends for years, the kind of friends who could say anything without judgment, who shared secrets whispered in the quiet of night, and who leaned on each other when the world felt too heavy. That night, it was supposed to be harmless fun, just a game between two women who trusted each other too much to imagine that trust ever breaking. The game was truth or dare. Silly, maybe even childish, but there was something about the way it peeled back layers, forcing us to reveal little pieces of ourselves we usually kept hidden. At first, the dares were harmless. Sing a song off-key, or text someone a random emoji. We laughed so hard we cried, clutching our sides, wiping tears from our cheeks. But as the hours slipped by, the dares grew bolder, the truth sharper, cutting closer to the heart of what we never said aloud. "Truth," I whispered, trying to steady my voice. Her eyes, dark and searching, locked onto mine. "Have you ever thought about kissing me?" My breath caught. The question was too direct, too dangerous. For a moment, I considered laughing it off, treating it like another silly dare, but something in her expression froze me. She wasn't joking. "Yes," I confessed, so softly it almost disappeared into the air between us. Her lips parted in surprise, and for a heartbeat, neither of us moved. The room felt smaller, charged with something unspoken. Then she smiled, a slow, mischievous smile that made my pulse race. "Dare," she said, her voice low, almost daring me with more than the game itself. "I dare you to kiss me," I whispered back, surprising even myself. Time seemed to stop. She leaned in, so close I could feel the warmth of her breath brushing against my skin. When her lips finally touched mine, it wasn't rushed or reckless. It was soft, tentative, almost fragile, as though both of us were testing the truth of what we had admitted. The world outside that room disappeared. All I could feel was her mouth against mine, the electricity sparking through my body, and the way her hand lingered against my cheek, as if she had wanted this for longer than either of us dared to say. When we pulled back, breathless, we stared at each other, wide-eyed and silent. Then she laughed, nervous but sweet. "We said it was just a game," she murmured, but her gaze never left mine. Something deep inside me whispered that it would never be just a game again. The kiss lingered between us long after it ended, the kind of memory that imprints itself on your skin, making every nerve hum with the thought of it. I tried to laugh it off, to remind myself that this was supposed to be fun, a game we both agreed had no consequences. But the truth was written across her face, clear and undeniable. She was shaken too. She leaned back on the couch, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, her cheeks flushed with a glow that wasn't just from the wine we had been sipping. "Okay," she said, her voice unsteady but playful. "Your turn again. Truth or dare?" I swallowed hard, unsure if I was ready for what might come next. But something inside me, something braver than my usual self, pushed forward. "Dare." Her eyes sparkled, a dangerous mix of amusement and longing. She paused, as if weighing her options carefully, then leaned closer until her shoulder brushed against mine. "I dare you to let me kiss you again. But this time, don't stop me." The words sent shivers down my spine. My breath quickened, my heart thundered in my chest, and, before I could respond, her lips were on mine again. This kiss was different, no hesitation, no testing boundaries. It was deeper, hungrier, filled with the unspoken things we had buried beneath years of friendship. Her hand slid down my arm, slow and deliberate, until her fingers laced with mine. She squeezed gently, grounding me even as everything else in the world felt like it was spinning out of control. I squeezed back, my body betraying how much I wanted this, how much I wanted her. We broke apart only when the need for air demanded it, our foreheads resting against each other, breaths tangled in the silence. I couldn't look away from her eyes. They burned with something I had never let myself imagine, something both terrifying and beautiful. "This isn't just a game anymore, is it?" I whispered. She smiled softly, her thumb brushing over the back of my hand. "No, not for me." The room felt warmer, heavier with the weight of everything unsaid. My mind tried to remind me of the risks, the possibility of ruining our friendship, of stepping into a place we could never step back from. But my heart was louder, pulsing with a truth I could no longer deny. I wanted her, more than I had ever wanted anything. We sat there for what felt like forever, caught between silence and confession, until she finally broke it with a whisper that made my chest ache. "Dare me to tell you how long I've wanted this." And just like that, I knew the game was no longer in our control. Her words, "Dare me to tell you how long I've wanted this," echoed in my chest like a drumbeat. For a moment, I could only stare at her, caught between disbelief and a dangerous hope that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't alone in this. "Then I dare you," I whispered, my voice trembling. Her lips curved into a slow smile, but her eyes carried something far more serious. She leaned back slightly, as though giving herself space to say what had been locked inside her for too long. "Since the first time you brushed my hair out of my face in college. Since the nights you fell asleep next to me on the couch, and I pretended not to notice how badly I wanted to hold you. Since every time you laughed, and I had to remind myself you weren't mine." My throat tightened, and I felt my chest swell with emotions I didn't know how to name. Hearing her admit it so openly stripped me bare in ways I wasn't prepared for. I reached out without thinking, letting my fingers trail over hers, weaving them together once more. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" Her laugh was soft, almost bitter. "Because I was scared. Scared you'd pull away. Scared I'd ruin everything we had. Scared that wanting you meant losing you." The honesty in her voice was like a knife and a bomb at once. I wanted to tell her I understood because I had lived with the same fear, the same silence. Instead, I leaned closer, my forehead brushing hers, my voice barely more than a breath. "But we're here now." She nodded, her nose grazing mine in a tender, almost desperate gesture. "We are." And then, as if words were no longer enough, her hands moved, tentative at first, then bolder, sliding down my arms, pausing at my waist. I felt the heat of her palms even through the thin fabric of my shirt. It wasn't just about touch, it was about shedding the walls we had built, one careful layer at a time. Her fingers toyed with the hem of my shirt, not lifting it, not rushing, just lingering there as though asking permission without speaking it aloud. My breath hitched, and I realized she was waiting for me to give her a sign. So I nodded. A small, trembling nod, but enough. She exhaled, relief mingling with desire, and pressed her lips to mine again. This kiss was fire wrapped in tenderness, a mixture of hunger and care. Each brush of her mouth felt like an unwrapping, not of clothes, but of the guarded pieces of ourselves we had kept hidden. By the time she pulled back, my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. She smiled softly, her fingertips still resting against my waist. "I told myself it was just a game," she whispered. "But it never was. Not with you." And with that, I knew we were stepping into something deeper than either of us had ever dared before. The silence between us was not empty, it was alive, humming with every unsaid word, every restrained desire finally slipping free. She still had her fingers resting lightly at my waist, almost as if she was afraid that letting go would undo everything we had just dared to confess. Her eyes searched mine, cautious and tender. "Are you sure?" she whispered. I swallowed, my lips still tingling from her kiss. I've never been more sure of anything. That was all she needed. She leaned in again, this time with no hesitation, her kiss deep and deliberate. I melted into it, letting her guide me, letting her show me with touch what words couldn't fully carry. My hands found her shoulders, then slid down to her arms, clutching her like I was afraid she might disappear. As the kiss deepened, she shifted closer, her body pressing against mine in a way that made every nerve in me spark awake. I could smell the faint sweetness of her perfume, mixed with the warmth of her skin, and it made my head spin. Her hands, still tentative but braver now, began to explore. She traced the curve of my back, then slowly, carefully, slipped beneath the fabric of my shirt. Her palms were warm against my skin, and I shivered at the intimacy of it. It wasn't just about undressing, it was about being seen, about peeling away the careful layers we had worn for so long. I looked at her, my breath catching. We said it was just a game, I murmured, half in wonder, half in disbelief. Her lips curved into a smile that was both tender and fierce. Maybe the game was just an excuse to get us here. Something in her words broke the last of my restraint. I tugged her closer, my fingers tangling in her hair as I kissed her again, pouring years of quiet longing into that single moment. She responded with equal intensity, her hands sliding higher beneath my shirt, caressing my sides, each touch igniting sparks that raced across my skin. It felt like we were unraveling, two souls finally stepping out of hiding, finally daring to want without fear. The more she touched me, the more I realized how much I had craved this without even knowing it, how much of myself I had locked away because I was too afraid to admit the truth. When she finally pulled my shirt over my head, it wasn't rushed or careless. It was reverent, almost delicate, as though she was unwrapping something fragile, something sacred. Her eyes lingered on me, not in judgment, but in awe, and the weight of that gaze made me feel more vulnerable and more desired than I ever had in my life. "You're beautiful," she whispered, and the sincerity in her voice nearly undid me. In that moment, I understood. She wasn't just undressing my body. She was undressing my soul. Her words, "You're beautiful," settled into me like a promise, dissolving the last of my fears. For so long, I had wondered what it would feel like to be truly seen, not just as a friend, not just as someone safe to lean on, but as a woman who could be wanted, cherished, desired. And in her gaze, I found that answer. My chest rose and fell unevenly as I reached for her hand, pressing it against my heart. "Do you feel that?" I whispered. Her brow softened, her thumb brushing lightly against my skin. "Yes, it's beating because of you." The air thickened with emotion, the kind that blurred the lines between friendship and something far greater. She leaned in again, but this kiss was different. It wasn't playful or teasing, it was deep, full of unspoken vows and raw honesty. I felt myself surrendering completely, every guarded piece of me melting into her warmth. Her fingers traced down my side, gentle but certain, as if she had memorized me long before she ever touched me. I gasped softly at the sensation, my body answering her without hesitation. She smiled against my lips, a mix of sweetness and hunger. "I've dreamed of this," she murmured. "So have I admitted, my voice breaking slightly with the weight of the truth. The words seemed to ignite something in her. She pulled me closer, and our bodies aligned in a way that made everything else vanish. There was no room for fear, no thought of consequences. There was only her, only us, only the fire that had been waiting to burn for years. She kissed along my jaw, then down the curve of my neck, her breath hot against my skin. Each touch felt like a spark meeting kindling, and I was powerless against the blaze rising inside me. I closed my eyes, my fingers curling into her hair, pulling her closer, silently begging her not to stop. But even in the rush of passion, she was careful. She slowed, pulling back just enough to look at me, her hand cupping my face. "If this is too much, if you need me to stop, tell me." The tenderness in her voice undid me more than anything else. It wasn't just about desire for her, it was about care, about making sure I felt safe. And that, more than the heat of her kisses, made me want her even more. "I don't want you to stop," I whispered, my eyes locking with hers. Her smile was soft, almost trembling with relief, and then she kissed me again, deeper, hungrier, her hands exploring me with a mix of reverence and urgency. Each movement felt like a confession, each kiss like a declaration we had been too afraid to speak aloud until now. In her arms, I wasn't just undressed. I was undone. The moment felt suspended in time, as though the universe itself had paused to watch us unfold. Every brush of her lips, every stroke of her hand against my skin, sent waves of warmth flooding through me. I had imagined what it might feel like to be close to her, but nothing in my daydreams compared to the reality of it. Her hands traced patterns across my back, moving slowly, savoring me as though she had all the time in the world. She wasn't rushing, wasn't careless. She was deliberate, each touch a language of its own, speaking all the things she hadn't dared to say out loud. I clung to her, my fingers slipping beneath the fabric of her shirt. I hesitated, breath-catching, unsure if I should take that step. But then she gave me a look, soft, encouraging, almost pleading, and I knew she wanted me to. With trembling hands, I lifted the hem of her shirt, inch by inch, until it slipped free. The sight of her bare, vulnerable, beautiful, took my breath away. For a moment, I could only stare, caught between awe and disbelief that she was here with me, that she had chosen me. She laughed lightly, a nervous, almost shy sound. "Why are you looking at me like that?" "Because I can't believe you're real," I whispered. Her expression softened, and she reached out to cup my face, pulling me into another kiss. This one was slower, deeper, as if she wanted to etch it into memory, to make sure I would never forget what it felt like to be wanted by her. As our bodies pressed together, the line we had always drawn between friendship and something more blurred into nothing. There was no going back. And strangely, I didn't want to. The fear I had carried for so long dissolved in her embrace, replaced by a certainty that felt both terrifying and liberating. We broke apart for a moment, both breathless, both trembling. She rested her forehead against mine, her voice low and rough with emotion. "I don't want this to be a mistake." "It isn't," I whispered firmly. "It never could be." Her eyes shone with something deeper than passion, something I recognized because I felt it too. Love. It was there, raw and unspoken, wrapped in every glance, every kiss, every hesitant touch. Her hands slid down my sides again, slower this time, and I felt myself shiver under her touch. She wasn't just undressing me, she was peeling away years of silence, years of pretending. And in that unwrapping, I discovered a part of myself I had kept hidden, waiting for her. "I've wanted you for so long," she breathed against my ear. "And now you have me," I whispered back, my voice trembling with truth. The words hung in the air between us, sacred and irreversible. The room was quiet except for the sound of our breathing, uneven, heavy, filled with anticipation neither of us could hide anymore. She still held me close, her fingertips tracing lazy circles on my skin, as if memorizing me one delicate touch at a time. The world beyond that room no longer mattered. There was only her, only us, and the way everything felt so impossibly right. I tilted my head to look at her, catching the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. It wasn't doubt about wanting me, that much was clear, but fear of what it meant, fear of how deeply we had already fallen. I brushed my lips gently over hers, offering reassurance in silence. Her body relaxed against mine, and when she kissed me back, there was no hesitation, only raw hunger softened by tenderness. The kiss deepened quickly, her hands moving up my back, pulling me closer as if she couldn't bear any space between us. I felt myself surrendering completely, letting go of every wall I had ever built. My hands explored her carefully, reverently, like a secret I had finally been allowed to touch. Each sigh she gave, each shiver that ran through her, fueled something inside me I couldn't contain anymore. When she pressed me back gently against the couch, her gaze locked with mine, questioning without words. My answer came in the form of my touch, my fingers tracing her jaw, my nod small but certain. She smiled softly, a smile full of relief, before lowering her lips to my neck, sending waves of fire rippling through me. Every kiss, every brush of her hand, felt like we were writing a new story, one that had always been waiting beneath the surface of our friendship. It wasn't just passion, it was years of longing breaking free, pouring out of us in the form of touches and whispers we had denied ourselves for too long. At one point, she pulled back, breathing hard, her forehead resting against mine. "I don't ever want to go back to pretending," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You don't have to," I murmured, cupping her face in my hands. "Not anymore." Her eyes softened, glistening with emotion, and then she kissed me again, with a hunger that stole the breath from my lungs. In that moment, I realized we weren't just giving into desire, we were surrendering to something much greater, something that had been silently growing between us all along. In her arms, I wasn't just desired. I was claimed, cherished, chosen. And as I let myself melt into her completely, I knew one truth above all else. This was no game. It never had been. Her body was pressed against mine, her heartbeat wild and uneven, matching the rhythm of my own. I could feel the weight of years in every kiss, every touch, years of longing, years of silence, years of pretending. And now all those unspoken desires had risen to the surface, uncontainable, unstoppable. She kissed me with urgency, but not recklessness. There was intention in every movement, a careful devotion woven into the fire. When her lips left mine and traveled down the line of my throat, I closed my eyes and surrendered completely, my fingers tangled in her hair, anchoring myself to her. The heat between us was undeniable, but so was the tenderness. She moved slowly, pausing often, as if giving me the chance to stop her, to pull away. But I didn't want to stop. Every brush of her hand, every sigh against my skin, only confirmed what my heart already knew. I wanted her, not just tonight, not just in this moment, but always. She pulled back for a second, her face so close to mine I could feel the warmth of her breath. "Are you sure?" she asked softly, her voice trembling with both desire and care. I nodded, my hand cupping her cheek. "Yes. I've never been so sure." Her smile was tender, almost breaking with emotion, and she kissed me again, slower this time, as though sealing a promise between us. As her hands explored me with reverence, she wasn't just undressing my body, she was stripping away the last of my fear, layer by layer, until nothing stood between us but truth. I reached for her, helping her shed the barriers she still wore, both physical and emotional. When she let me, when she leaned into my touch with a soft sigh, I felt my heart swell with a mix of awe and aching devotion. She was beautiful, not just in her body, but in her vulnerability, in her willingness to give herself to me fully. We came together again, skin against skin, heart against heart, and the world outside ceased to exist. There was no more past, no more hesitation, only the present, only the fire and tenderness we shared. Each kiss was deeper than the last, each touch more certain, until the line between us disappeared completely. She whispered my name like a prayer, and I held her tighter, whispering hers back, as if speaking it aloud could anchor me to this moment forever. It was more than passion. It was surrender. It was love, raw, real, undeniable. And as we melted into each other, I realized that this was not the breaking of something fragile. This was the beginning of something unshakable.